Hi everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel and a mixed media tutorial. Today I'm going to make on these 4x4 canvas magnets, and I'm going to be using a napkin and a couple stencils. This napkin, provided to me by NINNYSNAPKINS, is called Strawberry Garden, and I love the deep red of that flower. Now there's only two of those big flowers on this napkin because you can't get everything in all four quadrants, but I do have plans for the green and the red because that really pops, and that'll show up in another tutorial. So I'm using a liner brush with water, and you don't need a whole lot of water. And basically I am cutting the napkin with the liner brush. And the reason I'm doing this instead of using scissors is at this state the napkin is pretty flimsy to be cutting with. I would leave the plies on if I was going to use scissors. And I like the torn edges. So just put a little bit of water. You don't want it to get most of the napkin. You want a very thin line. That's why I like using the liner brush here. And I'm going around this bird. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that bird. Now, any of the pieces that I don't use, for instance, this bird or some of these leaves, are all going into a container, and at some point in time I will be using them because you can't throw any of this good stuff out. So I'm just going around and roughly I'm getting basically the shape and the what I want out of this, and then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to remove a little bit more based on the size of what I'm going to decoupage this on. Now, do you see the words kind of in the middle of it and the white? Now, the white would in all likelihood, fade once you put the gel medium or the fluid medium on it. But I don't want that. I'm going for a fairly simple composition, not a whole lot of other pattern, and so I don't want that. So I grab my light and fluffy modeling paste and two stencils, Maidenhair Fern and Screen View, and I'm putting it through the stencil, and I'm kind of keeping an eye. I'm not really, for this one, I don't want to put it underneath where the flower is going. And on Screen View, I did put it on the whole thing because one of the things I wanted to see was how do the napkins decoupage onto the modeling paste? Does it destroy the napkins, or do the napkins work out really well in that situation? Because I like using modeling paste, so if it works, it's going to be great. I'm just cleaning up a little bit of this and working on thinking again the composition. Now, when you've used the modeling paste, you need to wash those stencils kind of ASAP. Here, now that I know how much of the flower I want and I'm setting up the composition, I'm getting rid of the excess. I could lay these together and combine them, but I decided to go for just the one single flower on one of the magnets and a little bit different on the other one. I do make two basically of each kind in this, although you will not see all of them. If you're looking for the stencils, you can get them through wherever you can find them, or you can shop at NINNYSNAPKINS. She now carries TCW stencils, or there is also the TCW Shopify link in the description box below. So taking the cue from the napkin, the center of the flowers are yellow. I grabbed Naples yellow and I'm mixing the Naples yellow with white gesso. That kind of gives it a chalky finish, and I don't want it to look just one tone, just the straight up Naples yellow. So this kind of gives me that blended look. Some of it's lighter and darker. And then I want a little bit more contrast, but really without going into another color scheme. Sometimes I use a lot of bright colors, and this was not the case. Naples yellow is one of my favorite yellows, and it becomes very light, kind of parchment when you've mixed it with white or white gesso. So I'm just using the brush and getting into the grooves and the nicks and, of the modeling paste here. Now I grab yellow ochre and I want to build up a little bit of contrast. And I thought, okay, that's just a step darker than the Naples yellow. If in fact I took the yellow ochre and added white, I could probably get very close to the Naples yellow. And I just rub this on parts of the raised sections. And then I thought, I'm going to introduce a little bit of brown in here. And I'm going to edge it with brown just to make it a little bit more vintage feel. And I really was happy with that decision. Now, yellows, oranges, browns, that is really not where my color story really is. I love the purples and the pinks and the aquas. But you can't argue with the contrast of the red with this Naples yellow and the brown, the beauty of it. And so now I've got three different tones. I've got the Naples yellow as it's watered down or blended with the white, actually four. Naples yellow with white, the yellow ochre, and the burnt umber. So on this one, because there's a lot of white space, I grabbed my script stamp and I spread some of the acrylic paint, the burnt umber paint, on my glass mat, my Tim Holtz glass mat, and I'm stamping the script. Now, in a perfect world, I guess I could have stamped that before I did the modeling paste, but then I have to paint, there's a way around it. If you do it in one way or the other way, you're going to have different difficulties. This wasn't so difficult. And I didn't worry about going over top of the maidenhair fern because I am going to colorize that. So I am putting the stencil back on, trying to match it up as closely as I can. Some stencils are easier. This one's not bad because there's really only one way. Some are definitely more challenging. And I am putting the yellow ochre and then some of the burnt umber through with a makeup sponge and colorizing a little bit of that. I'm not trying to get perfect coverage by any means. I just want it to be a subtle color. I want the star of this canvas board to be the flower from the napkin. But I do want to bring out that texture in the background as another interesting element of this make. And you can see how that worked together. So I'm edging the other one with the brown. And remember, I said I've made 4 of them. And so some of them, if you see me doing it again, that's because I went back and I redid. I didn't have brown on the first 2. And then when I came back, I thought, oh, I really like this. So I'm adding a little bit more brown on this one. So even when you think you're done, you can always go back and tweak it. Add a little bit more. Now these are my short and sweet sentiments. It's one of my new for April 2020 sentiment packs, and they are words, 1 word to 4 word sentiments. And I've printed some off on clear Avery stickers, white Avery stickers, tissue paper, and my tea stain papers. So I printed it off on a whole bunch of these and I keep them in a pile. And today I'm using the Create Magic is on tissue paper that I printed off using my laser printer. And the other one is printed on the clear Avery. So it's just peel and stick. which is great. And this Avery one, and I will put a link to it in the description box. It does go fairly matte, so you're not getting a shiny, you know how some stickers are really shiny? It's fairly matte, and you can see that. And if you rub it down, you can see the background and it almost disappears. And if it is a little more shiny than what you like, or you're using a different brand of clear sticker, or a sticker that's very shiny, if you put a little matte medium on it, that will dull the shine as well. So here I'm decoupaging the napkin down, and I'm using a soft brush. Actually, I grabbed a harder brush. It had a little bit of gel medium dried in there, so I grabbed a softer one because I didn't want to rip the napkin. And I'm kind of pushing it into the nooks and crannies of the modeling page. Remember I said I wanted to know how the napkin handled it, because it gets very fragile when it's wet. So if you watch here, when I get to the napkin part, even this tissue paper part, I just kind of push it into the grooves and crannies, and it becomes one with it. It worked extremely well. I had no trouble. I didn't rip anything, but I am being careful. I am aware that the napkin, the tissue paper, it becomes very fragile. So it's a light pressure, and then I'm kind of pouncing it up and down and pushing it into. So on this one, where I have the stencil screen view over the whole thing, it becomes part of the patterning and the texture of the flower as well. And I love that effect. So even though I've done the same on both, I've made each one a little bit different. So now I just want to splatter with gold. And this is just gold paint, and I pre-mix it, but as it sits, it gets a little thicker, so I spray water in it every once in a while just to make sure that it is the right consistency for splattering. And I'm absolutely loving these so, so, so much. Now they are magnetized, but they can also be set on little mini easels. And you're going to see some of the pictures where they're on the easels. Now, remember this napkin? I do have a plan for this, so that's going to come back on another one. And you know what? Any focal image, owls, other flowers on other napkins. If you can't get a hold of this particular napkin, or that flower isn't your thing or color, you can use any kind. Just match the size to your substrate. So here are the finished products. I hope you love them as much as I do. I hope you give this a chance. Follow me on Instagram at creativekatie.com, at creativekatie. Bye for now.